How's everybody doing? I'm going to talk about a subject that is an ugly subject, but we have to talk about it anyway, especially on the verge of Devin Haney versus George Kambosos. As the title says, racism and sexism in boxing. Now we know people are tribal. People will associate with the group that they're in. So for example, I expect Aussies to root for Kambosos. I expect the Greek community to root for Kambosos. I expect white people to root for Kambosos. But sometimes the reason people do what they do is rooted in what they think. They think that actually they identify with race and they believe their race is superior because they're basically in control of things. And as a result of that, sometimes other people's rights and how other people are seen can be violated. I'm talking human rights, etc. But I've noticed something in boxing. Boxing is rampant with these superiority complex people, both in terms of race and in terms of gender. Uh, a warrior is a warrior. A warrior is not a man or a woman. A warrior could be an animal. But a warrior is a warrior. And people who are warriors, fighters, have a certain mentality. Doesn't matter if they're men or women. I can tell you that right now. A warrior thinks a certain way, and that's that. And in boxing, I hope and pray that we can come to a point where we can recognize the special warriors above all the other warriors. And whether we identify with them or not, give them their just due. See, that's the level of maturity that I expect in boxing fans. You can have your preferences. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I don't like in boxing is the playing field is never level. And I find, as an observer of the sport, that some people are criticized unfairly and other people are given a pass. And when I inspected it a little further, I realized that this was because of race and gender. And if you just so happen to be black and female, you got a double whammy working against you, no matter how outstanding you are. So I put up Clarissa Shields. Right now, Clarissa Shields is not seen as pound for pound #1 in the world. She's not. But there's not a damn woman in boxing right now with a resume like Clarissa Shields. Clarissa Shields has what, 10 fights? I think it's 10 fights. She has faced, I think there's only one fight or two fights where she's faced 10 or more world champions. She's been undisputed twice. Okay? She calls herself the GOAT. And yet, if I am to look right now in the pound for pound rankings for women, she is not the #1 pound for pound woman fighter in the world. Now, Clarissa herself said, the Amanda Serrano-Katie Taylor fight surpasses her fight with Savannah Marshall, which is coming on later on this year. I think Marshall had an injury or something. But talk about dominant. A dominant world champion, Clarissa Shields. This woman should be pound for pound #1 on anyone's list. In fact, I'd say she's pound for pound at least top 10 in men's boxing. Who have you known in the recent modern era of boxing has been undisputed in not one but two weight classes and unified in a third? Who in the history of boxing has done that in the modern era? She's the only four belt, two divisional, undisputed world champion and unified in a third division. There's no one else. Why is this woman not pound for pound number one? So here's the arguments for why she's not pound for pound number one. She has been steamrolling through everyone. She hasn't found a worthy opponent, so she's not pound for pound number one. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. All right. Canelo, pound for pound number one, was steamrolling through everybody. That's why he was pound for pound number one. I never heard this kind of dumb stuff. My point being, if Clarissa Shields was white like Katie Taylor, we would not be singing this tune. Her race and her color has made people hypercritical of her and her excellence, so that there's none to match her. None. That woman is pound for pound number one in my book. 100%. We look at the Ring magazine. We look at Transnational Boxing Board. But for a fighter who's been around longer than any other fighter in boxing except for Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford, who was pound for pound number one. Then they said he wasn't facing proper competition. Then he faces proper competition. Instead of the Ring magazine putting Terrence Crawford as pound for pound number one, they deliberately put Alexander Usyk, who's a two-divisional world champion. Yes, he beat Anthony Joshua. Incredible, but Anthony Joshua had been beaten before. Why is Terrence Crawford not pound for pound number one in the Ring magazine and Transnational Boxing Board's ratings? I'll tell you why. He's black. See how many black fighters are in the Ring magazine's pound for pound listing. See how many black fighters are in the Transnational Boxing Board's ratings. Jermell Charlo just became undisputed super welterweight champion. Instead of people celebrating that, they're talking about Costa Zoo and how he's ducking Costa Zoo. You believe this shit? Tyson Fury won the WBC championship from Deontay Wilder, beating him 3 times. But yet, Tyson Fury is hailed as the greatest heavyweight of all time. Almost immediately. And he's free to retire from boxing. There's no one challenging, oh no, he needs to face the Usyk Joshua. I mean, you have people who are saying that, obviously. There are people. But I'm just saying, you can see that the scales are not balanced. They're not. And it's because of what we call racism and sexism in boxing. So when somebody says, oh, there's no racism in boxing, that's ridiculous. I remember Floyd Mayweather saying it was racism in boxing. I remember Jermell Charlo saying, I know what it is. I know what it is in this game. Because the fighters know. To this day, I still hear people say, Andre Ward, he ducked out of fighting in boxing because he was ducking Bivol. This man just beat Sergey Kovalev twice. Y'all wouldn't give him pound for pound number one when he beat Sergey Kovalev the first time. Y'all, in fact, y'all want to say it's a robbery. Turns around and he shows you it's not a robbery in the rematch by stopping him, knocking him out. To this day, some people even say he hit Sergey Kovalev low blows. Devin Haney. Devin Haney has been criticized with some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. He don't have a chin because Jorge Linares, a puncher, hit him in a three-punch combo. Clipped him with the right hand and then come back with the left hook and stunned him. This is the same Jorge Linares who knocked down Vasily Lomachenko with a straight right hand. What's his kid's name? George Kambosos. He got dropped by Teofimo Lopez and was groggy for a good minute. Does that mean that George Kambosos don't have a chin? Why are we not keeping the same energy? Why are we not keeping the same energy? Does that mean that Lomachenko don't have a chin? Oh, Lomachenko fought back and stopped Linares. That don't mean he don't have a chin. Does that mean he has a chin? Or he doesn't have a chin? Oh yeah, Kambosos, he fought back with Teofimo Lopez and he won. But does that mean he has a chin? These guys got dropped. Devin Haney didn't get dropped. He didn't get dropped. So I look at these things and I realize it's a black fighter. That's the reality. It's an ugly reality and an ugly truth, but it is what it is. Praise anything that's black fighter. It don't care what race they are. If you could just a little light skin, if you got a little light complexion, praise him over the black fighter, over the darker skinned guy. That same bullshit is still going on in boxing today. That antiquated shit from way back in the 60s is still going on in boxing today. Because people are tribal, and I have nothing wrong with somebody being tribal. It's good to have a sense of belonging and a sense of history where you came from. I have a problem when you are judging people, you're being hypercritical about one person, and you know it ain't true, but you give other people a pass on the bullshit because you're not on bullshit then. What we call this is you're full of shit. That's what we call those people. All right? When you try to make it about complexion and you try to down an excellent fighter who's excellent in what they do, I say you full of shit because you could never do it. None of those people in the media could do it. None of those motherfuckers who may have boxed a little bit and they may have won 1 or 2 world champions, but you couldn't do the shit that they do. Why are you so jealous? Why are you so hating? Why you gotta hate on a fighter? If you want to say a fighter's unproven, then bring your facts. Devin Haney is proven. That motherfucker is proven. That Jojo Diaz fight proved to me what kind of fighter Devin Haney is. Tank Davis is a proven fighter. Whether you feel that he faced the best or not, he's a proven fighter. Okay? And these are things, I watch it. I watch Jamel Charlo. I even fell for the bait. Castani would beat him. Right? That's a proven fighter, man. Might have lost 1 or 2 fights, but he's a proven fighter. And I'm not saying that he didn't lose to Castaño. In my opinion, he still lost to Castaño in the first fight. But that's I see all the hate with Deontay Wilder. Why are people hating on Deontay Wilder? Tyson Fury said crazier shit. Wilder said all kinds of crazy stuff. But Pacquiao said crazy stuff. Why is nobody going in on Pacquiao? And I realize dark-skinned people, for some reason, people don't like him. Just because of their fucking skill color. And it pisses me off. So I decided I want to talk about this. And I couldn't give a fuck what anybody else feels. Because to me, it's about the mentality of a fighter. A fighter is a fighter is a fighter. And Why don't we have enough clubs and groups where boxers can get together? Because guess what? Y'all don't understand what fighters go through because y'all never been that way. But I could guarantee you there's a common bond between fighters, between warriors. There's a common bond. They all know what it takes to go through that. And it doesn't matter if you're fucking Mexican, white, Asian, black, you gotta go through the same shit. To be successful. You know? And this is what I don't appreciate. Now you notice, I have never once went in on George Kambosos. While everybody's trying to say he's the villain role, I understand some things. The promotion is on your shoulders now to carry for George Kambosos. It's on his shoulders. So he's going to say certain things to attract attention. He's going to try his thing to get mental games into, into divination. I cannot be mad at him for that. I tell you, I admire George Kambosos. I admire him because I understand the mentality it takes to win at all costs. And he's white. And I'm black. And I know this. And why do I admire these attributes? Because I can add them to my vocabulary. I can add them to my life. I can add something from there I can pick off and use to my benefit. I don't even have to like him, but I do. I admire him. I admire him a lot. And he's not very old. He's about 28 years old. He's almost half my age. And look how much he's accomplished. See, what I'm trying to say is that in boxing, the sport wasn't built and designed. Shout out to Boxing Gems in the building. What up, fam? The sport wasn't designed to, trying to find the right words. The sport wasn't designed for us to nitpick shit. It wasn't about nitpicking shit. Boxing Gems, great channel, by the way. It was designed for us to be able to take something that's manly, it was a manly sport, a man sport kind of like, and bring out the great attributes of a combat, a warrior. It was supposed to bring about pride in a warrior and great warriors, kind of like a superheroes. Because human beings always need something to elevate them. And there's nothing wrong with being a tribalist when your tribe represents something that brings something new to the table. There's nothing wrong with being that. That's why we got, you may see, for those of you in Facebook, you'll see Superman, a white Superman, as my icon. I don't think I'm white. I'm not white. But Superman represents something. Okay? The icon represents something. And so you get, comic book fans and people who follow that because the icon was similarly, we understand the emotional bond between people and people they recognize and people we can see values and virtues in. And Kambosos is one of those guys that I truly identify with in terms of the virtue of hard work, determination, and focus with whatever you have in your hands. That's what he shows us. And if we can't understand why we even identify or like certain fighters, if we can't even pinpoint that, then it's really sad, because this is what all sport elevates people. Sport's not supposed to get you all mad and riled up and you want to kill somebody for it. No, sports is competitive, absolutely, but sport is supposed to elevate you. It's supposed to push you to realize, hey, the human being could do this and this and this And it takes you to a sort of, it takes your imagination places and makes you feel like you can, like, if you know, after a fight, maybe you feel like you want to do a couple rounds on the punching bag because you feel inspired, you feel motivated, you feel juiced up. It take you to another place in your mind. Boxing Jam says, but seriously, it's theater. It's about money. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's entertainment. No doubt about it. I got you. So that, you know, people try to be as provocative as they can be. Absolutely. But what I'm saying is, in spite of all of that, it's also inspirational. Remember, a lot of the young guys, a lot of the young kids coming up in boxing, they look at these guys that they're watching on the screen and they get inspired by them. You know what I'm saying? The younger folk. I got a nephew. He watches my stuff, and he gets inspired. And he's in the gym. He's doing his thing. He's you know, throwing hands and shit. And he's not really a boxer. He's more of a race car driver, actually. All right? And he's looking, you know, planning out his future and everything. But boxing is a thing that if you're passionate about it, I'm just saying that it takes you to different places in your mind. You know, when you see an incredible fight, or even if you see a technical fight, depends on what your preference is. You know, I know Kambosos loves technical fights. He even said that. So for him, his excitement is the way how we understand excitement, and some of the old school people understand it. And anyway, I'm just saying, while I do understand that, you know, these differences are selling points for fights, which is good, and great for the sport, I'm saying something else. I'm saying that a lot of times we are attacking and nitpicking things which really are like, we could have deeper discussions about boxing. This is what I'm trying to undo something that has been put in place. And so when I speak, I'm speaking trying to undo something that has happened, which it wasn't there before, and now it kind of came into being. It, you know, it became cool to tear down fighters. It became cool to be narcissistic. It became cool to take our heroes and shred them and destroy them, right? It became cool. It became part of what we do. And, you know, I look at the people, the mainstream people in boxing, they don't do that. They don't do that. So where did it come from? It came from somewhere and it seeped in. You know what I'm saying? Now, back in the 80s, why I'm saying this is because as a sport and a whole, I'm trying to say something, but I think a lot of people are not going to get it. That's okay. I'm cool. I might shoot over some people's heads, but MMA or UFC, for example, I'm not deep into the sport, so I don't know what the hardcore say, but MMA as a sport has a positive, the way our fans speak about it and so on is in a very positive manner, right? I don't know what personally goes on in MMA, but as somebody outside, the feedback I get from it is that it's an excellent sport. It's great. You know, the UFC is great, and the fighters in there, you know, they put on great fights, and they always have great fights, and that's the feeling I get. I don't always get that feeling with boxing, and we've been having great fight after great fight. 2022, we've been having a lot of great fights. But what I see when I look in comments and groups, even on YouTube, especially with certain fighters, they get a lot of hate. I mean, a lot of hate. I mean, I know boxing's kind of like that, but I mean, some of the hate's just senseless. Like, it's dumb, right? And I know where that came from, because it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always like that, you know. And I know where it came from. And that's why public figures got to be careful what they say to the public, right? And particularly when it comes to certain ethnicities in boxing, for some reason, people continue to be hypercritical of them, especially the exceptional. I mean, we're not talking about the non-exceptional ones because they don't make it to the grid, right? And then you get this hypercriticism of them. All right, and I already gave some examples. All right, and so what I'm saying is, we got to at some point as boxing fans, and this is Boxing Gems in the building. He breaks down fights, he breaks down things. We got to get past that because to recognize skills and talents and abilities, we need to be able to recognize what it is we're looking at. We got to be able to look at warriors that go into the ring, understand that different warriors fight different ways, and therefore be able to recognize. Otherwise, what's going to happen continuously, which does work sometimes to the benefit of, making a fight bigger, but nonetheless, we must be able to look past the facade that is called race and gender. We have to be able to look past it to what are the attributes the fighters literally have. What are the fighters really bringing to the table? And that's what Boxing Jam does. He breaks it down. He's one of them. But for me, personally, I believe that you must be able to be able to at least acknowledge the truth of a situation. Otherwise, time and time again, you're going to get fights wrong. Because one guy's yapping in the corner and one guy's keeping quiet. And so you feel that the guy who's talking, and is a guy that maybe you like or whatever, you believe that he's the guy because you don't really know what it is you're looking at or you've been looking at in the previous fights and so on. Because what I'm trying to get to is, yeah, I know Boxing Jams. I watch you all the time, so and I'm glad you're there, but I'm just saying, I think my point is, I'm not even talking to you, really. I'm talking, you see it for what it is. You have the eyes to see this is what it is, right? I'm not talking to you, obviously. But I am talking to the wider audience on this topic area because if you don't, and some people recognize it, some people don't. But what happens is the waters can get muddy when people who know better sort of kind of muddy the waters. This is what I have a problem with. You know what I'm saying? And I know people. Sometimes what people want to do is say this fight here. You see this fight right here? This fight is a fight where, it's really a 50-50 fight. It's not a 50-50 fight, but nonetheless, it's a 50-50 fight, and this is the reason why, right? Or sometimes they come around and they say, they big up their opponent and they say, you understand this guy's the favorite in this fight. This guy's the guy that's going to win this fight, and they do their narrators to get people's interest in the fight, right? Cool. But sometimes people don't even need to know that. What people need to, and this is what I'm trying to say about honesty, people don't even need to know that it's a 50-50 fight or not. Sometimes people come out to, okay, sorry, my bad. Sometimes people come out to see a fighter, period. They just want to see that fighter fight because they know there's going to be a KO at the end. And so depending on what kind of fighter we're talking about, you don't need to tell people something or sell people something that is not true. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying. But I'm just saying also that in addition that there's a mentality that we have in boxing which leads us into hyper criticizing certain people because we may not identify with them and for reasons outside of boxing. Take for instance, when George Kambosos called Devin Haney a rat, everybody went down on George Kambosos. Oh, George Kambosos, he's the villain, he's this blah, 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 blah. I don't like George Kambosos. All of a sudden, you rooting for George Kambosos to lose because he called Devin Haney a rat. And I'm like, well, what is he supposed to call him? An angel? I mean, you expect in a press conference he's going to praise Devin Haney? It's his enemy. He told you he's doing the art of war. Why would he tell him? Of course he's going to try and get in his head. You know what I mean? Exactly. Boxing Jeff says it's a deep rabbit hole, but that's also promotional network driven. The whole boring tag is evidence of that. Boring and running. Boring and running. They talk about boring and running now. That's like a fad thing right now that has nothing to do with boxing, right? Running, I mean, I've seen some guys run in the ring, for real. Some people really do literally take a jog and they run around the ring and stuff, right? I even saw Purnell do it, right? But what I'm saying is that boxing on the back foot is not running. And mainly because the whole purpose of boxing on the back foot, and we've seen it now for how many fights now? We've seen it for the Tank fight, we've seen it for Jamel Charlo fight, we've seen it for the Bivol fight, right? All three of those guys boxed on the back foot. But that's the way how they get the counter punch. That's how they get to set up your punches, to get to set up the guy to run him into something. I mean, it's absolutely integral. That's what Canelo don't have tremendously. That's why he's missing that from his game, and that's why, you know, if he's going to face Bivol again, he better get that up and popping so Bivol can chase him down instead of just sitting on the ropes. I mean, it's very important in boxing, I believe. An integral part of boxing is boxing off the back foot. So, like, these kind of illiterate things, I hate hearing it when I know boxing fans not too long ago, maybe I would say about five years ago, weren't saying these things like that. They weren't talking about running and all this nonsense. That was kind of reintroduced into boxing. I know it's been around for a while. People say run and stuff, but not in that mainstream sort of way that people are saying it now. And to me, what's so sad about it is it's always a black fighter that they look to identify that with. You won't hear them saying that a white fighter's running. You don't hear that. Vasily Lomachenko, you never want to hear that. Manny Pacquiao, when he's fighting Brandon Rios, he don't say right, Manny Pacquiao's running. You know what I'm saying? And these are the things. It's denigratory and it's to a race. It's always that, and I don't. It makes the sport dumber. I'm cool with, you know, Paulie Malignaggi. That's all Paulie used to do, stick a move. You know what I mean? And to me, it kind of dumbs down the sport, and I don't appreciate that at all. And so that's why I try. My channel and your channel is there to sort of, but I get to, with the time frame I am, I get to do something as a fan that I'm sure other people in the business just can't do. You can't go in on fans. You can't say to fans, this is stupidness that you're doing. You know, but I as a fan can do that to other fans because I'm a paying customer and I'm saying it to other paying customers. You know what I mean? So I could get away with doing that, whereas a professional who depends on the fans, you know, the networks, etc., they can't just go in on fans like that. Even though on certain occasions they do throw a jab here or there at the fans to let them know, hey, come on now, right? So this is what I feel my place in the whole thing is to say, hey, come on, man, we need to grow up as fans, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, absolutely nothing wrong with identifying with your nationality, your race, your peoples, and backing them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we need to stop these unfair criticisms of fighters and making other people feel like they're not as good as they really are, so that we could actually get the right perspective on them when they match up. I mean, certain fights, I know are mismatches from the get-go. I'm like, that's a mismatch. So why would people actually come to see the fight? Okay, maybe because of KOs. Or maybe they just like this fighter and they follow him and they want to see the fight, which is nothing's wrong with that. That's been so since the beginning. We call them showcase fights. Some of them we call stay busy fights, right? A showcase fight is showcasing the skills of the fighter and they're put with an opponent to make them look good. That's part of boxing too. You know, and a lot of times people, you know, and sometimes the fight is big. You know, I mean, I don't want to mention Mike Tyson, but Mike Tyson, I'm going to mention him. Mike Tyson, you know, had a number of showcase fights, you know, to make him look good, especially when he came back from prison. He had one or two, and then he got back into the championship fights. And the whole point behind it is, people want to know if you okay and you back and you doing your thing and you Mike again. You know what I'm saying? And even early in his career coming up, of course, he got the showcase fights as well. So, you know, people go in on, say, for example, Canelo for doing a showcase fight here or there. No, everybody can't fight championship fights back to back all the time. In fact, none of the champions today are fighting championship fights back to back. So why are we putting that burden on Canelo that is not being put on other fighters? So all of these things I'm trying to say is because of tribalism, because Canelo beat Triple G, You know, everybody hates Canelo. You know what I mean? Of course, people say, but Canelo's always getting decisions in his favor. The judges always seem to favor Canelo, so that's another reason. But mainly because he beat Triple G, and a lot of people wanted to see Triple G knock out Canelo. This is what really was going on. They was like, Canelo's a diva. We want to see Triple G knock him out, and Triple G always knock out everybody, and he couldn't. Okay, that's just my opinion. But at the end of the day, I'm just saying, without losing the initial trend of thought, which is that I believe that strikes go against somebody, warriors, and they don't get their just due, you know, because of sexism and racism in boxing. I'll be very straight with people. I'll be very honest with people, and it's something that we have to undo. We have to undo some of that. Of course, you're not sexist and racist if you say, you know, I'm gonna dominate every single black fighter I face. There's nothing sexist or racist about that. That's your goal. That's what your aspirations. And people sometimes nitpick what is racist and what is not racist and all these kind of stupid things. You have to be able to know when you're putting down a select set of people for whatever reason, whether it's because of their gender, whether it's because of their race. And some people say that's a slippery slope to go down. Nah, man. It's called politeness. It's called kindness. It's called having a decent bone in your body. It ain't that slippery. You know what I mean? It's not that slippery. But I look at what's happening with Devin Haney and how I already know how some people will judge this fight and how they think about the fight. And I know that decision making is based on, you know, this guy is not what he thinks he is, and he's not all that. I get it. I get it. Nothing's wrong with that. My problem is when you start to go into and you start to change up information to support your arguments, or you start to give false information about the guy, and you start to bring these narrators, like I just said, with his chin and with all these other things, but you're ignoring all the other fighters that are not black like Devin Haney, or they're not in his weight class, and they're saying, oh, he can't punch, he can't do this, he can't do that, and you start to criticize a guy who's just doing the sport really, really well at the top level, you know? And if he pulls this thing off and he beats Gambosis, you know, I know something else is going to come up. It's always going to come up. It's always going to come up. They're always going to criticize the guy. They're going to I'm surprised Shakur don't get criticism, but so far he's been kind of protected, sort of like, you know what I mean? But you know, it's just one of those things where I find it sad, you know, that once it's a skilled colored fighter, black, that you get these negative connotations always attached to them. It's always something about they got physical skills and they got physical ability, but there's always something wrong with their mental. And I know where this comes from, like I said before. I know where this comes from. I know where it began. And I just don't appreciate it as a fan, you know. So I decided I would speak on it because after Blue Blood Sports TV just did a piece there on a sit down with certain group of people and some people I really respect, and they were all in agreement, but it was all instigated by one individual. But they all were in agreement, you know, about Devin Haney's not tested and proven like Kambosos, and I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about? Like seriously, what the fuck are you talking about? What's the difference between what Kambosos has done and Devin Haney has done? Very little. He beat Teofimo Lopez. He beat a past his prime Mickey Bay. Devin Haney beat the past his prime Jorge Linares. And George Kambosos faced a Mickey Bay on, what was it, 3 weeks notice? Okay? Whereas Jorge Linares had all the time to prepare and he was on a winning streak. Yeah? And then when we look at Jojo Diaz, how is Jojo Diaz past his prime? In what way? Explain that to me. Came off of becoming the featherweight world champion, then went up in weight, beat Javier Fortuna. He's on a winning streak, a long winning streak, since the Gary Russell Jr. loss, which is the only loss of his career. And he steps up in weight, dominates Javier Fortuna, dominates him. This is a tough, rough and rugged, you know, skilled boxer. who Ryan Garcia is supposed to be facing next, dominates him, and comes up against Devin Haney in a test in which I did not know at the time if Devin Haney could pass that test. I didn't know it. I was like, this dude, I don't know about y'all, but this you can't sleep on this dude, right? And Devin Haney beat him. In fact, he walked him down in the final minutes of the fight. He was walking him down. So what I'm saying is Devin Haney proven? Absolutely. What are you kidding me? All right. Kambosos also faced Lee Selby, who is is a boxer. He's not not he ain't no JoJo Diaz. And I'm gonna say it again. JoJo Diaz is a better boxer. Quote me on this. JoJo Diaz is a better boxer than I believe than George Kambosos. Because think about this. JoJo Diaz came up from featherweight to super featherweight to lightweight. Nobody can stop him, and he's winning. He keeps on beating guys. How is that possible? Because he got defense. Very good defense. He take a punch too, but he got defense. All right? A lot of those shots that Devin Haney was throwing on JoJo Diaz was hitting gloves. He got more body shots in than straight shots. Okay? JoJo Diaz has very good defense. And he has a good movement, old school movement. Slip and slide. He slip and slide to the inside and do his thing. So JoJo Diaz, to me, talking boxing, I ain't talking about fighting, is a better inside fighter, better boxer on the outside than George Kambosos. George Kambosos is quicker. He fights more on his toes. He moves around the ring more like Pacquiao. But the problem with George Kambosos, sometimes he sell out and take risks to come in on the inside. He takes risks. So I don't understand what these guys are saying, that Kambosos is more battle tested or more proven than Devin Haney. He's not more proven than Devin Haney. He did about the same. Teofimo Lopez is the best thing that Kambosos has faced. Devin Haney, his best is JoJo Diaz. And I'm going to say this. I would love to see JoJo Diaz if Teofimo Lopez was at a lightweight still. I would have loved to see JoJo Diaz versus Teofimo Lopez. Because once again, JoJo Diaz has dealt with everybody. He's dealt with everybody. I'll put JoJo Diaz in there with anybody. Just like I'll put Canelo in with anybody. I know that none of them are knocking out JoJo Diaz. Nobody's knocking out Canelo. You're not knocking these guys out like that. They got defense. People talking about David Benavidez knocking out. I'm sidetracking, but I'm going into the boxing because I like boxing. They say David Benavidez will knock out Canelo. You wish in your dream. In your dream, he just came from light heavyweight. If a light heavyweight, who's a true light heavyweight, could knock out Canelo, you telling me David Benavidez, who's a blown up light heavyweight, but he's fighting at 168, is going to knock out Canelo, right? Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, right, sure. That's not happening. Okay, and the reason it wouldn't happen, because Canelo is not a flat-footed fighter. David Benavidez is a flat-footed fighter. Canelo's not a flat-footed fighter. Anyway, that's a whole other story for another day. And he's so much quicker than David Benavidez with the hand and the feet and everything. But it is boxing, and so it is what it is. I have complete confidence. So anyway, JoJo Diaz, I think, is a better fighter than Kambosos. Kambosos uses movement. He uses the shell a little bit, but he uses mostly movement as his defense. And he has beautiful combinations. Throws 4, 5 punch, 6 punch, 7 punch combinations like Manny Pacquiao. He follows boxing a lot more. He's more fundamentally sound boxing wise. But to say that Kambosos is a better boxer than Jojo Diaz? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, I would love to see Jojo Diaz versus Kambosos, see what Kambosos can do with Jojo, because Jojo is the goods. Jojo is the goods. I would love to see what Kambosos could do. Once Jojo gets to the inside, you know, he can work his left hooks, his right hooks. You know, he can work the body. And Kambosos doesn't look like a guy that clinches a lot. So he likes to keep the activity going, you know. So that would be interesting. But back to what I was saying. So I'm just saying that in lieu of what Blue Blood Sports TV said, I decided to do this post up because it's too obvious, man. It's too obvious with the nonsense that goes on in boxing. And one thing you need to do with fighters is give them respect. So like I said before, I don't see what the hell they talking about. That Kambosos is more proven. In fact, I'm gonna say this: Kambosos is less proven than Devin Haney, and I'm gonna tell you why. Devin Haney has had a number of defenses with his WBC title. This is Kambosos' first defense of his set of titles. So in fact, Kambosos is the less proven champion out of the two champions, because he is yet to defend his title and successfully do so. Whereas Devin Haney has, as a champion, defended his title successfully against Jorge Linares and Jojo Diaz. So what I'm basically saying is that George Kambosos just became champion, and now as a champion, he's about to be, or titleist, shall I say, multi-titleist, but as a titleist, he's about to make his first defense, which is new terrain for him, and let's see how he performs with that. Devin Haney's been there, done that. So Devin Haney has more experience as a champion at the championship level than George Kambosos. That's the truth of the situation. So the truth is always stranger than fiction, you know, and they make it, they pitch it like Devin Haney, you know, this is the first time he's stepping up in levels, and no, been down this rodeo before, dealt with this already, right? This isn't something new. I'm gonna say one more thing, and I'm gonna get out of here. I believe that women's boxing is going to be a major attraction in about 5 years' time from now. Big, just like our women in MMA are doing exceptionally well, and it's going to be a major attraction. I think women bring a lot of things to the table that men can't do, and you can kick ass. On top of that, it's, you know. But what I want to say is that as of present, I'm glad that women's boxing is getting a lot of shine. Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor 2 coming later this year. But we need to, as men, learn how to respect the process of the evolution of women's boxing. And understand a warrior is a warrior. It does not matter that you're a man or woman. The mentality that is going to be that of a warrior. Okay? And when these guys step into the ring, it's the same risks that men go through that women go through in that ring. They may have a shorter space of time, I think 2 minutes to around, but it is just as risky and sometimes very brutal, some of these fights. And some of these women take the punishment and they don't go down. So they're taking a lot of punishment and they ain't going down, okay? They're not getting knocked out. which tells me they have a greater threshold for pain, which could mean probably some of them get more damage than men would. But maybe they have better powers of recuperation as well. Who knows? But what I can say is that I've listened to a lot of guys say, "Oh, I'm not interested in women's boxing," and blah blah blah. Now it's that you think boxing is a man's sport, and I've even heard one of the guys, Joe Abib, say something like that. He thinks it's a man's sport and men are built this way. You go into battle and you go into war, and the person holding you down in that war is a woman, but she's a mad sniper. She sniped the wind off of a bee flying in the air, you know, quarter mile away. She could take that. She could take it down. Do you care that it is the woman that has the gun backing you up or not? No. At that point in time, you just want to make sure that you have a good sniper that can handle the situation if it's necessary. My point being, we must separate gender from the role in which somebody conducts himself with as a warrior. Meaning, of course, women are different to men, so outside of the ring, a woman will conduct and do things differently, right? But on the back, in the war, in the ring, boxing, it's a certain mentality to take punches, to dish out punches. It's a certain. It's not everybody is born and wired that way. To want to be in the heart of battle and be able to take a punch and still keep your head level, not lose your cool and shit, and just brace down and be like, oh my God, my nose, right? Or turn away, right? Or flinch, right? It's a certain mentality that can keep focus in spite of that and be looking and focused on the target that is in front of you and the target points that you have to land on. It takes a certain mindset to do that. Alright? We got all kinds of people in the gym throwing punches on punching bags and shit. But to say to get in there and spar? Hell no. Right? So, I'm just saying that we have women in martial arts. Many great martial arts. Not just judo. Kickboxers and all kinds of things women do. Okay? So we have to understand that this fraternity of boxers is a set of people with a certain mindset. It's a certain mindset of people that end up in combat sports and end up in combat. Just like there's a certain set of people that will go into policing, or a certain set of people who go into the military. It's a certain sort of mindset that would make a person want to enter into that kind of discipline. Okay? And once we can respect that, then we can really appreciate, whether they call it women's boxing or men's boxing or whatever, we can appreciate the sport more and see what different fighters bring to the table, because especially in this day and age, boxing has gotten a lot more, to me, in my opinion, especially in women's boxing, it's evolved so much that now we're getting credible fights. We're not just getting people flinging hands and swinging hands. We actually got people with skills, fighting, and using their skills, So I just would like, some people are growing up from since they're kids fighting and boxing and being in tournaments and amateur competitions and so on. So it's a lot more elaborate than it used to be, say, a couple of years ago, when it wasn't so much the WBC title. We had like the WIBF, WIBA, we had the WIBF and so on. Now we actually have the IBF female. We have the WBC female. We have the WBA. We have the WBO. They're now these official umbrellas that bring about undisputed. We actually have those in women's boxing, right? Back in the day, there was these miscellaneous titles, and now we kind of get a uniform, and we can talk about undisputed in women's boxing and all these kinds of things. So I'm just saying that women's boxing kind of become more organized and it's become more of a form. And if we can just get boxing sort of uniform throughout, like men's and women's boxing just kind of uniform, where we strip down all those other extra belts and crap, and we can have undisputed champions, like just one person holding kind of most of the belts, I think that helps out a lot and making the sport even easier for a fan to follow and understand. Okay, this is the champion in this division. Okay, this is the champion in this division, because most of the champions be undisputed. Sometimes every now and then you will have somebody who's not undisputed, but um, so I'm just saying that women's boxing is something that's really growing and it's blossoming. Thankfully, Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, DAZN has been pushing that. Has been great for the sport. We had Delphine Pursoon, who actually fought a real fight uh, in Dubai on the Mayweather undercard, but it kind of got overshadowed. But if I can find that fight, maybe I'll post it up on YouTube so you guys can see the fight, because I've been looking for it. I haven't been able to find it really so far. But she just recently won a fight. Delphine Pursoon, of course, the super featherweight, women's super featherweight, I believe it's WBA champion, if I'm not mistaken. So you should check her out. This is the woman that gave Katie Taylor two very tough fights. And that's what I got for you guys for now. I am what you need. Thank you so very much for tuning in, people, when you tune into my channel. But I just wanted to talk about it. I get it off my chest as well. And we'll talk some more boxing soon. All right. Enjoy the fight tonight. And peace to everybody. I'm out.